This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
My name is Drew Burns, and I'm a part of a small group of dentists who believe something crazy. We believe that the standard of care is just not good enough. We demand the best of ourselves and the best for our patients. We believe that the best way? No, the only way to practice dentistry is on our own terms. If you ask the dental consultants or the corporate CEOs, they tell you that what we're doing isn't smart, that fee-for-service dentistry is dead, and that the golden age of dentistry is over. Yet, while others focus on profits first, we focus on the patient first. And yet our offices are some of the most profitable in the entire country because we invest in ourselves and we are doing things right. It's our name on the door and it's our reputation on the line. My name is Drew Burns and I am a fee-for-service dentist. This is the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast and these are our stories.
Welcome to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. Dr. Sonny Spera. Today's episode is my last episode as host of this show. I've really enjoyed my experience on this platform. I've met some really unique, interesting, fascinating folks, so many people that I've learned so many things from. You can't replace some of those experiences, and I'll be forever grateful to all the wonderful friends I've made and met along this journey. I probably will resurface on a different area with a different show, but for right now, I just wanted to kind of record a final episode. I'm going to bring on a couple people and that I've had as guests that I've developed, I think, very good friendships with. And just express some of our thoughts and experiences. I think the most important thing that I can share, the biggest lessons that I've learned through this, is there are no two experiences that are identical, yet every single one has a lot of common denominators, commonalities, common pitfalls. We've talked to folks here who have been bankrupt, $2 million in debt, not knowing where their next sandwich was coming from, and some folks who knew exactly what they wanted to do and were able to implement it and put it together. God bless those folks. People like myself as a guest and then as the host, my experiences have been pretty positive along the way. I have not experienced practicing in network, so I can't really say, oh, this is what it's like, because I never experienced that. I've always been an out-of-network provider, and I guess from the conversations I've had, I thank God that I've been able to experience it that way. I've truly been blessed. And Drew Burns, the host and the founder and the owner really of this podcast, was kind of, nice enough to bring me on as a guest several times. We had many conversations. He and I have developed a very nice friendship, I believe, and I've tried to help him however, whenever I could. And then that includes taking over the podcast. After the pandemic, he had approached me and said, hey, do you mind doing this? Otherwise, this might just die on the vine. And I felt really impelled to do it. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy the so many conversations that I've had. And like I said, it's truly been a labor of love. Kettenbach, our sponsor, thank Dan Perilli and his folks. And then the many other sponsors that have come on for a show or two here and there. And so many to even mention, if I start to name them, I'm going to miss someone, and I don't think that's really fair. So I'll just say thanks to all those wonderful people and companies who, again, I've made friends and relationships along the way. And I think in this industry, in this business, it is all about the relationships that you make along the way. I know, like Stephen, and in dealing with and in meeting and talking with him, and some of the things that he experienced as a owner, and some of the challenges and I'll say fears. I'll be honestly, I think there were some fears along the way of, you know, am I doing it the right way, or am I doing it correctly? Because in dental school, right, let's face it, you're given tests, millions of them, and there's one right choice. That means, therefore, all the other choices are wrong, which in dentistry, as you all know, if you've practiced more than a day, I mean that sarcastically, I hope you appreciate, um, that that's not true at all in dentistry. There's 5 or 6 correct ways to handle things. Treatment plan, you're going to put a composite, you're going to place an amalgam, you're going to place a glass ionomer, you're going to place SDF, or you're going to use fluoride or icon, or use some of the various treatments. They're all acceptable. The key is, in your heart of hearts, believing what you're doing for those patients. And that has to be, first and foremost, that you're doing what's best, you know? And I've been really fortunate. I think the good far, far outweighs the bad, but there are those moments when you just shake your head and, think that I'm lower than a piece of dirt. And those are tough moments. And I know we've all had them. I've had plenty in my 35 years in practice, and eh, I still consider myself young. We had our dental meeting, and Dr. Ankur Gupta came and spoke, and he's a good friend. And as I looked around the room, I was like, yeah, we're the older guys. And I was like, oh, that's me now. And some of the younger dentists that are joining, that are in our group, that are in our dental society, I think it's important for us to make that effort to break down that barrier, because I think there are a lot of people that are just not normally outgoing or friendly or break down the ice. The fact the dentist I sat next to in our one office practices in a town or two over, I've known his name, I've seen it, I've never personally talked to him. His daughter's a dentist. So long story short, it's the first time I met him, and really nice guy. And we practiced 10 miles away from each other, and in the rural kind of community areas, that's a stone's throw, literally.
Hey, Sonny. I just wanted to take a moment to express my gratitude for everything you've done with the Fee for Service Dentistry podcast. Your passion and dedication have truly made a difference in the dental industry. From insightful interviews to practical tips, your episodes have inspired so many of us in the industry to challenge ourselves to think past the status quo and industry norms, to build something that is dynamic and unique, and maybe as important, something that is unshackled from the confines of the insurance landscape. Your ability to connect with guests and listeners alike has created a community that I'm proud to be a part of. Big thanks to one of our mutual friends for connecting us to do an episode on your show a couple of years ago. It's been really cool to look back on our friendship and our working relationship and know that it all started with that episode on the Fee for Service Dentistry podcast. Thank you again for sharing your knowledge and your heart with all of us. Your legacy will undoubtedly continue to inspire future dentists and industry leaders for years to come. Wishing you all the best in your next adventures, and I'm excited that I get to continue being a part of those next chapters with you. Cheers.
So, you've got to take those opportunities to really reach out, and I think put yourself out there a little bit, and don't be afraid to get your hand slapped a couple times. But because I do think that in the effort to help people, there's a silent majority that accept that help. I mean, for example, I posted a bunch of things like on dental clinical pearls that I think are helpful to dentists. Do I get a lot of feedback? No, sometimes yes, sometimes not much at all. But I do feel that there's a number of dentists that are going to read that and get something out of it. Maybe it's something that they don't want to do. Well, that's a learning experience, right? So they're all teachable moments. But it's hard. It's hard to put your neck out there and get it. Feel like you get it chopped off a lot. And that the beautiful world of social media, which is really fantasy land, is sometimes a bitch. You put yourself out there, and instead of hearing, oh, gee whiz, I'm sorry to hear that. can I help you? Can I do whatever? No, it's like, well, why didn't you do this? And you should have done that. Or the famous rabbit hole. And if you talk about point one, let's say you send an x-ray and you're talking about a cavity on the mesial of 4, and everybody wants to talk about the crown on number 2. That's not the question, but we'll go down that rabbit hole sometimes and lose sight of what it was. Like there, for example, was a post on a site, and it talked about the experience that this dentist had of this mother and her daughters coming to their office, out of balance, constantly out of balance, refused to acknowledge, said it wasn't true, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the long story is where everybody got hung up, but her question was very simple. How do you dismiss this patient? Well, answer the question. That's my feeling. So the one beauty of this podcast is that you get to talk to a bunch of people and put a lot of stuff out there, leave a little bit of something behind for the next generation to either laugh at and say, oh my God, that's what they did in 2022 and 2023. Or maybe they get a little something out of it. I still have people I talk to that are looking at buying a practice. And I said, I did a podcast with Drew, that'd be 6-7 years ago, talked all about valuations and purchases and all that stuff. And then I did a couple follow-ups with a buddy of mine, Ron Kaminer, and we talked about some of his experiences in purchasing practices and valuations and making things work financially and from a business standpoint. I still think that stuff holds water today, but I think you have to have the courage to put it out there and not worry about, getting slammed or getting your arm chopped off. But as you all know, that dentistry sometimes is fickle, and some of the things that we do might be perfect at the time and done to the best of our ability, and sometimes things fail or go south. And then how do you talk, or how do you handle that situation? And those are really deep moments where I think dentists can help each other, because again, 80-20 rule, we focus so much on that 20, we forget about the 80. And I see that all the time. And I think, and I was the same way. I was a younger dentist or a younger practitioner. I think in an effort to be precise or to be perfect, and let's just talk about trying to be perfect for a second. There's a blessing and a curse there. And I think the curse is nobody can be perfect, right? And it's nice to have high goals, but you realistically have to understand you're never going to have it. I mean, as a basketball coach, you're never going to have a perfect game, ever. And you're never going to have a perfect team member, ever. But you've got to look at the body of work. For example, the Villanova upset Georgetown 1985 NCAA championship. Everybody called it the perfect game. Villanova had 17 turnovers. So was it perfect? No. Was it exceedingly excellent? Yes. So I think if you chase perfection, the old, I think it's Vince Lombardi. We will chase perfection, and along the way, we'll catch excellence. And I think you have to understand that. And it's okay. I think it's okay to say, these are some things I can do better, and these are some things I want to do better. But I think the next part of that is, what's the excellence, though? We can define perfect. We all can define perfect. And we can hold ourselves to that standard. But we have to really know that excellence, right?
What I learned from the Fee-for-Service podcast is that we have a large community of folks who can share great ideas about how to stay out of network, how to serve the patients well, and how to keep pushing service to its highest limits. I think that it's important that we recognize that our first duty is to our patients, and we can only do that when we know a lot of different ways that we can connect with them and solve their problems dentally. Without a group like the Fee-for-Service folks, and without a podcast like the Fee-for-Service podcast, it would feel very lonely out there, and would make it much more easy to seem that the dental world is one that is only determined by insurance companies. Really great to know that there's a lot of innovative and creative ways to not just serve our patients well, but to have a great career being able to do the kind of work that got us into the profession in the first place. So I'm grateful to everyone in this group, and I hope that we can continue to be strong in the long, far future. Hope all is well. Thanks so much.
So I think establishing the parameters of what's excellence is very hard, because we all can define, like I said, you can define perfection, you can quantify it, but you've got to be happy with excellence. And I think that's where your friends and your support system comes in. So I think with this podcast, one of the things that I think we try to do is a dose of reality. I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing where they came from. I love what makes them tick. That is one of the most interesting things about hosting this podcast with so many of the guests that we have on for their first time. Tell us about yourself. Tell us how you got where you got. Tell us where your foundation was laid to become who you are. Like Dr. Lior Tamir, right? I mean, just talking with him, like his father was a entrepreneur salesperson. His mother was a nurse. So it wasn't hard to understand how he's a practicing dentist, but he has a real business tech savvy to him. I just find it fascinating, and in the conversations that we have and the things that come up along the way, I think are just tremendous. And I hope that you guys all have appreciated that and found it useful. Now I don't know the future plans for the podcast. It's going to be in Drew's hands, and he may be asking, maybe looking for someone to step in and take over, and that would be cool. If not, well, then I'm gonna guess that's okay as well. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, really, to sit in this chair and talk to so many of you. The one difficulty, if I can whine like a typical dentist will, feedback is rare. I don't get a lot of feedback. This show's good, that show's bad. I put my personal email and cell phone on every episode, and I never get contacted. Not never, rarely get contacted. So it's hard, because sometimes you're operating in a vacuum. Even with patients, that they're not, oh, I don't want to be here. I'd rather have a baby. I'd rather do this. Well, even they give you some feedback, because it's direct. So it's difficult. Now, my daughter's a stand-up comedian, so you want to talk about direct feedback. Good joke, everybody laughs. Bad joke, no noise at all. Or 50% of the people laugh, 50% don't. So it's like the most immediate, intense feedback job you can have. God bless her, I could never do it. So, getting back to this entity and some of the things, I think probably the biggest lessons that I can pass on that I've learned from the many people on this show are, if you're looking to get out of network, you have to have a plan and you have to be committed. And I think the first part is being committed. Then you derive your plan, and then you do a deep dive. You can do a deep dive probably before you commit, but you have to do a deep dive into what your numbers are, or why. What's your why? Why are you doing it? And although I think a lot of times the money improves financially for the doctor, that's never been the sole focus. Not to me, that's never been the primary focus of anybody that I've spoken to on here. It's a byproduct of doing all the other parts right. Now, I don't think that's fair to say. Let me back that up. I don't think I can say fair to doing things right. Doing things right by you and in your business, right? I think we were all taught in dental school, it's a doctor-patient relationship. You present the treatment plans as best that you are aware of, and the patient selects it. I think as soon as you put a middleman in the middle, that is a third party, you're no longer practicing the way you were taught in dental school. So it's a very bastardized version of what we were taught. And now all of a sudden, you're dancing around it when the conversation truly should focus on Mr. Jones, Mrs. Smith. either, take your pick. This is what you have, and these are the ways to address it. Do nothing, do X, and these are the consequences. Do Y, and these are the consequences and expected results. And then, how can I help you? That's kind of it. I don't think you have to go into a deeper dive, but I know when you first start, as I did, you have verbal diarrhea. So you want to talk forever and ever and ever about it. Something the person stopped listening to you because once you used a word they didn't understand, they're stuck on that word and they miss the next 90% of what you're saying. So I truly, I'm thankful. I'm blessed. I really have appreciated the journey of doing this show. I'm going to have a couple friends on here and do a couple segments with them and get their input and feedback a little bit. But again, I can't say thanks enough. If I can ever help any of you, and I really mean that, if I can, I'll try. Can't promise anything. I'm not a consultant. I'm not a paid advisor. I love to see people thrive and be successful. There's nothing better when like when you're coaching a kid, and I love coaching, so I'll use that as an analogy. When you're coaching a basketball with a kid and you're trying to get him to understand how to rotate, let's say on defense, and help the helper and rotate in, and they don't do it, and they don't do it, and then they do, and they get it, and you tell them about it, and then you see that smile on their face like, I got it, or that discovery, right? There's nothing like it. There is no feeling, nothing will replace that feeling of accomplishment and joy on that child or teenager's or adult's face when it happens. That breakthrough, that aha moment, that epiphany, take your pick. I think I love it. And I just absolutely unequivocally, I think I said it right, love to see people succeed and be successful in their own skin and be happy with being in their own skin. I mean, we got enough mental health issues across the board, and dentistry is one of the worst. And a little kudos, thanks to Dr. Frank King for stepping in and talking a little bit about the suicide prevention and awareness. I think it's real. And I think if you don't have those outlets, you don't have that support network, and you don't have those friends, companions, colleagues. Now, it may not be the guy next door or the guy around the corner, because in the old school dental society where every dentist practiced in their own little cave and were a solo practitioner and everybody out there was their quote competition, it's not the case. But I think that happens. But I think if you get outside of that little area, and I think social media really helps that. Podcasts, Dental Town, Dr. Howard Ferran, Gordon Christensen, some of the things that he does and outreaches and stuff, I think are great ways for docs to collaborate, sometimes commiserate. Because if you've done it, I guarantee there's plenty of other people that have done it. And many people won't admit it because they damn sure won't post those cases on the internet. Trust me. Nobody exposes that part of their anatomy very much. And the reality of it is, it happens. Happens to all of us. It won't be your first, and it won't be your last.
Hey, Sonny, thanks for all you've done for the Fee for Service podcast over the last many years. It's been an interesting time for dentistry and the economy as a whole. I think you've really helped get all the information from all these interviews that really help dentists that are trying to go fee for service, or dentists that are wanting to continue to stay fee for service, and encouraging that and get that separation from patient care and insurance, and separating those two. You're really good at getting the little tiny tidbits out. That's the golden nuggets that help all these dentists. And so I think that's really something that is really hard for people to gather, and you're fantastic at that. we wish you the best in all of your new endeavors, and we just want to say thank you so much for all the support of all the dentists you've given over the years. Thanks.
So have that network, have that support system around you, and you do your best every day. And I hope to God that you enjoy it. I really, really do, because I think dentistry has been great. The old Saturday Night Live, for those of you old folks like me, been Betty good to me. Chico Escuela, the baseball player, that skit was hysterical. But those things, I really feel that, that dentistry's been good to me for sure. But I also believe that you get out of it what you put into it. And the more that you put out there in the world, the karma thing, I think the more that comes back to you. So I do think, and I would love for my audience and people that listen to make sure that they make an effort to reach out and help others, or just be there for their fellow man, fellow woman, fellow person in dentistry, and do whatever within means that reasonable that you can to help them through. I really truly believe that. So I want to say thank you all. I couldn't have done it without you, the many guests that we've had and the many friends and relationships that we've developed. Made my day. And I did this without getting too emotional. There were many other things I wanted to say, but I didn't feel that they were too personal. I didn't want to share some of that. So all you guys out there, gals, you know who you are. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Peace.
Thank you, Sonny, for hosting the Fee-for-Service Dentist podcast all of these years. The advice and the encouragement received by listening to it has been invaluable. Between your podcast and the Facebook page, it made going out of network 4 years ago so much easier for me. I appreciate all the hard work you've done, and I can't thank you enough.
Thanks for listening to the Fee-for-Service Dentist Podcast. If you would like to share your fee-for-service story, please fill out our contact form at ffsdentistry.com. Also, be sure to join our Fee-for-Service Dentistry Facebook group. For help starting your dental membership plan, visit dentalmembershipdirect.com and membershipmastercourse.com. Finally, for help with in-house financing, visit dentalfinancingdirect.com. And don't forget, your story is what you make of it. This is your name on the door and your reputation on the line. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.